Nothing wrong with edging every now and then, Siobhan. And what they'll need to do to challenge the Bombers. Plenty to get into. Let's get started. Siobhan, welcome. Last week's performance. How much of a step back was it in your eyes, or was it just
I
a
would,
bad day?
yeah, it was that. Oh, I like it. I like it, Dean. You got the positive spin on it. I like to see it. We were just saying off air, I had a good laugh to you and said it's the last time I ever come on here and act confident. And I think that's the thing that's probably the most heartbreaking part of all of it is that I think the supporter group, after what we saw in round one, started to feel like, there were, and I understand the narrative in football always changes, especially in the media, but it did feel like somewhat of a turning point that we were going to play that way every week. And I think a majority of supporters penciled in that win against West Coast. And up until quarter time, it looked very promising, didn't it? And it's hard to know whether or not they got ahead of themselves or whether or not it was that West Coast just ramped up their pressure and their energy and speed. But we look like the North Melbourne of old for 3 quarters, and there's no more time for that. There's no excuses for that anymore. It's just the worst part is you go into the game against Essendon where they are probably on their knees as a football club, but it's a huge game in the context of both coaches' careers, and I think for both fan bases as well in many ways. I hate Essendon. I say that very freely, but they've been long suffering supporter base just like we have. So there's a lot of tension in the room, I'm sure, on Saturday night. It's just what's the most disappointing is that the trust that we're all hoping will be built this year with this group is gone again. And it's at the point where you go into a game where on paper we look the better side, but you don't know which North Melbourne's going to show up. And that's the worst part is that they just can't deliver when they need to deliver. And it's time to grow up. I think that's the issue with this football club is that there's no more patting on the back. There's no more good effort, good try. They need to actually start delivering results, and they're just not at the stage where they're doing that on a consistent basis. So here comes Saturday night, a major challenge for the football club, and we'll see if they can rise to the occasion. Because if they don't, I fear the consequences.
Now, Jack Crow has come into the chat, Siobhan. He's devastated Costanti got dropped. I know he's a whipping boy, but I love his effort. I don't know if he's joking or not there, Siobhan. So, but if he is a Jacob Costanti fan, I do apologise. And we will get to team news, Jack Crow, very soon. So we'll talk more about that. I mean, I think I spoke to you off air a bit. We put some trust in him, but it's like going back to the cheating ex. You're thinking everything's changed, everything's rosy. We're starting to move forward. Then all of a sudden they're putting their phone back in their pocket, hiding things from you, and that's exactly what happened. It was just a capitulation, wasn't it? In the second quarter, once West Coast put a bit of speed on the ball, and we did see it against Melbourne as well in that pre-season game. Once the teams that have put a bit of speed into the game, we just can't keep up with them, can we?
It's a really funny thing because I think I mentioned earlier in the year on the podcast and my thoughts on the game overall is that unless you have great skills and you're a side that moves the ball quickly and with efficiency, you're completely and utterly screwed in the modern game. I think with the new rule changes and the way the game's going, um, the premises of the game now are those two things. So for whatever reason, against Port at Marvel, we looked really promising in those areas, but my God, did we get punished on the turnover? And I think what we've spoken about a little bit as well is that we do rely on too few. And Clarkson even mentioned, he said there were too many passengers, and I'm glad he made that comment because you had Sheasel getting 40 disposals, but it was like I think you mentioned this with the boys the other night, but it was a disappointing 40 disposal game, and whether that's part of West Coast's pressure and their effort and the way that they kind of turned the game that forced him to kind of make mistakes, but then you had LDU on the other hand. I think they're the two we rely on who have great games, and on paper it's bloody weird, Dean, because you have Larky kicking 6. You had LDU and Cheezel dominating on paper. You got a lot out of some of the other players on the ground as well. So if you looked at that, you go, oh, North win. But it just shows in the modern game, especially if you have anyone that's not playing their role and anyone that's letting the team down, whether that be with poor disposal or not. The missed tackles were disgraceful. I think that's the part that also really frustrated me is that they look like young boys against men, and this is against West Coast, a team that won one game last year, that are young and developing. And we spoke a little bit about some of the way that their young players almost schooled our defenders in many ways too. And I understand they've got talent, but I think it was certainly part of our lackluster sort of attitude after quarter time. So you don't want to be seeing that again, and it's not that as simple as to give them a pass and say it was a bad day, because we've had a bad day for 7 years. So it's really hard to understand where that performance came from. And again, X was brilliant too. He showed a lot of fight. So unless you watch the game, you wouldn't really understand how we had great performances from certain individuals. But I think it further goes to show that if one player isn't delivering, we struggle significantly.
Yeah, and I think I even mentioned this through an emotional text message last weekend, that I still think we rely on individual talent to win football games and not a system-based process, I guess, to win games. So I think we're trying to change that narrative a little bit, but it's hard when you see performances like that second and third quarter where, the evidence was there that I don't know if this is just going to be a one-off thing where teams are just putting a bit of speed on and we become reactive. And even just ground ball gets as well, Siobhan. Every time we kicked it long, like we were slow kicking it long, so you think, we're going to get players to this contest. They won every ground ball get. I think they won 24 more ground ball gets between the second and third quarter. And I think the metres gained by handball were 244 to 24 metres in that second and third quarter. We became far too reactive. I don't know if it's a respect thing or we just didn't adjust. It looked like we didn't adjust. So, it's, things like that, they shouldn't be happening at this stage of a rebuild. And it's been 5 or 6 years. And like I think you pretty much summed it up pretty well. It's time to grow up and take responsibility and stop giving credit to, a pretty average opposition at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd hate to think they got ahead of themselves, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they didn't. But it's hard to not see it like that, because we were punishing West Coast on the turnover and delivering results in the first quarter, and then maybe they got a little bit complacent and thought, oh well, we've round one, we look like we're on track for another great win. If that's the case, then that's laughable, because we have no reason and no right to ever sort of think that about ourselves as a football club. But you're right. I think I don't want to go into the psychology too much because I don't know this for fact. Stats are facts, but this is a little bit more just a reflection on the playing group. I think they are still very mentally fragile. When there's pressure on them to win games of football, and when the opposition does tighten the screws, they go to water. They make really simple mistakes, and I think that was a really frustrating thing, is they were just bombing the ball in the air or going down the line or making really simple errors that West Coast capitalised on and basically reversed the script of what we were doing to them in the first quarter. And that's the thing. And I've always thought it was a lack of leadership on the ground that kind of allowed that to happen in the past. But we've got enough experience and enough players out there now to not use as an excuse. So there should be no reason why we can't deliver in those moments. And I think that's why I was impressed with the playing group in round one. When Port looked to challenge, we had an answer right back. And even in the Collingwood practice game, I know it's a practice game, but we did look as though we were able to stand up to the pressure that Collingwood put on. But against West Coast, the second they started to dominate, we just absolutely capitulated. And that's not good enough against a side like West Coast. And I fear for us going forward when we play quality sides and they start to get a run on. What are we going to do then? Who's going to be the one to say enough's enough? You could argue it was Sheasel and LDU and Sherry, but again, their impact on the game wasn't enough to kind of sway the momentum. The only person really, in my view, that can really leave the ground going, I had a great day, was Nick Larkey. But so that there's plenty to work on, but we're in the season and we're 7 years into a rebuild, so we've got to get our act together pretty quickly. And if it's not this Saturday night, then it's going to be bloody never, I tell you.
Well, yeah, we can only move forward at the end of the day. Now, Jack Crosley, I don't know if it's Crosley or Jack Crow. Now, he came back into the chat and he said, definitely not joking, Dean. You're talking to the ultimate Kane Turner, Jack Marnie, Jacob Castandi fanboy. Now, I don't mean to say this, Jack, but maybe you need to seek professional counselling through a therapist if you're thinking that, those players are huge impact players. But no, that's all good. Come in and chat. Yeah, I think Jack likes the role players by the looks of it. And that's probably been nice. Now, we had a few things bubbling off the field during training this week.
Yes.
Siobhan, Charlie Common and Tristan Sherry. Some people say it shows competitiveness. Others say it's a sign of frustration, probably with the performance that happened on the weekend. Where do you sit with it?
Ooh, I liked the video today that showed that was a bit of a lighthearted take on it, and they're mates again and whatever else it might be. But my initial thought, and again, it's probably a negative thought, but I'll share it. I thought, well, that would have been nice to show that sort of fight in the second, third quarters of the game on the weekend. But at the same time, I don't mind it. I think it does. For me, it doesn't show frustration. I think they're both competitors, very much so. We know X and Charlie's the same. I think they like to win. They like to be at the top of their game. I didn't read into it as being sort of a level of frustration at the club or the situation, whatever it might be. I remember years ago watching Melbourne training with Stephen May and had a similar sort of incident. And at the time, there was a narrative around Melbourne. I didn't view it like that. I just think they're both two competitors that wanted to settle something, and then we've moved on from that. But it'd be interesting to see how both those boys go on the weekend and how they sort of act. But I'm very happy Charlie Comben got off on that incident with Harley Reid, and God, he's a knob. Not Charlie Comben, Harley Reid. And if you look at the behind the goals footage and some fan footage, you can clearly see that he's gone to have a high five with Elliot Yeo and just beeline to Charlie Comben and started it. So, yeah. He had a good game in terms of his disposals, but he's got a lot of growing up to do. Anyway, that's very much side. But I did think that probably Charlie Comben had a frustrating day when it came to his performance on the weekend, and maybe that's just spilled over a little bit at training. I don't know, but I wouldn't read too much into it, Dean. How about yourself?
No, I've seen a few years ago. I remember Luke McDonald, Short Higgins in the pre-season intra-club match they were really going at each other. They weren't very happy, and then a couple of days later, they just shared a photo together, and all as well. So it's just sometimes about being competitive, and emotions can boil over even at training sometimes. But it wasn't that bad. Like, it was just a little push and shove, and they broke it up pretty quickly. With the Harley Reid incident. And look, I've got no problem with Harley Reid if he wants to let him know that he's, cost the team a goal and put it 5 goals up. But, I mean, it was an accidental forehead or, punch to the head to the eye, and he's carried on a bit on the ground, rolling around like a Italian soccer player that's, been tackled. But,
what he referred to it as a dog act. So I thought that probably took it way too far, considering he was probably the instigator of it. No. I think a dog act is probably something like what another ex-West Coast player did in Andrew Gaff. I think that's a very different incident. But what you saw on the weekend, I think using that type of language just aggravates a situation that didn't need that. And that's what kind of frustrated me from that sort of spill over from the game.
No, of course. The team was getting frustrated, you could tell, and that's what led to Charlie Comben's high tackle on Elliot Yeo. He was trying to make a statement, went too high, almost killed him. But, and look, I've got no problem. You give as good as you get. An opposition player wants to get in your face, but you've got to take it too. If you're going to dish it, you're going to take it. And, there's nothing wrong with Charlie Comben's response. We move forward. We've probably got bigger things to worry ourselves with. And another big concern for me, and injuries are starting to pile up, and we've had it for a while. Josh Goda has had a recurrence of a quad strain again. Griffin Logue goes down with a hamstring last week. If I'm honest, I'm starting to lose faith a lot in this medical team. Is that fair, or am I just talking through frustration, Siobhan?
I think it's fair to a certain extent. I'm getting very worried about Josh Goda. I'm very, very worried about
Well,
Josh
it keeps
Goda.
doing soft tissue injuries, and they don't seem to be fixing it, so it's not good enough.
No. And it seems to be when he gets to the point of almost coming back and maybe he's got higher loads, whatever it might be, he gets re-injured. And I think he's got a lot of talent, and I really of the players, we'll get to Riley Hardiman soon, I'm sure. But of the players that are on our list, I think those two working together really excited me when we were able to see that. So, he's a bit of a worry for me. And Griffin Logue, he just can't stay on the park either, can he? And it's a strange thing to say, and you spoke a bit about it on the last pod, but I really did feel like losing him on the game during the game on the weekend threw things out of balance. And we already are. I've spoken about this too so many times now, but we already are so brittle in the back half, and losing someone with experience and the one that usually takes the monster key is going to be. I know it's I think the club's at 2 to 3 weeks. They're all winnable games for us, so it makes you sort of a little bit sad. And I think the frustration in that for me, and we'll get to selection, is that they've gone back to Paul, where there's someone like Will Dawson there, and Whitlock, if they choose to go down that path where if Lowe goes down, they are players that can come in that I think should be replacing Paul and Logue in the first place. So, I think they need to have games put in them so that if we get more injuries in the back half, they're ready and right to step up. But I do agree with you in the sense that I think that George Wardlaw comes back this weekend, and we'll see what happens with him. But maybe there is an issue with the soft tissues at the club, yes.
It seems to be now. I think I spoke about this off air, but I don't understand with the Griffin Logue injury. He's done a hamstring, and they haven't put ice on it. Now, that's basic 101 in medical science, that you put ice on a hamstring to reduce the swelling, and it'll reduce the number of weeks you miss through injury. And I don't understand. They just like even you spoke off air. You thought he was going to come back on. I thought he was going to come back on. I didn't think there was anything wrong with him. Yeah. So I found that a bit bizarre, and that's where I was kind of lose a lot of faith in this medical team. And high performance team. Well, high. I probably shouldn't put a high in there in a performance team, but it is a performance team of some sort. So. Yeah, it's getting a bit frustrating when you hear, the same players keep doing soft tissue injuries. We're probably going to get Braden George now in the next, this week, probably do a hamstring or something like that just to compel it. And then, George Wardlaw, I still worry about him. I know they've got a running coach in, but I don't know why it's taken 18 months for that to happen. That should have happened the day he got drafted. I could see that he runs. Not in the.
They were aware that he had those issues.
Yeah, and his running technique, that's where it starts, and a lot of it is through that. And but I'm not too sure. We can go on about that, but we might as well go into selection. And we did make 3 changes this week. There was a couple of surprise ones. I guess the players that did miss out. Now, I didn't know he could get dropped, but Jacobs Castanti comes out for the first time in his AFL career at North Melbourne. Griffin Logue, we just spoke about him, out injured, and Jack Darling admitted as well. And players come in, Aidan Corr, you mentioned him, George Wardlaw, you've mentioned him, and the big fella, one of your favourites, Siobhan, probably one of the only few that have faith in his career. And we spoke a little bit about him off air, CCJ. I didn't think he was that bad in the pre-season where everyone seemed to go at him. I thought he was okay. It was more just that he was going to get a game ahead of Cooper Trembath, and everyone was really stressed about that, having anxiety attacks online. But, Yeah, I mean, I suppose he comes in as a second ruckman and try and stretch that Essendon defence, who are quite small.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not we are potentially too tall for a game at Marvel, where there's a lot of speed and a lot of requirement for that. But I retract that very quickly and say that I'm happy to see CCJ back. I'm probably one of only a few that feel that way. But I said at the start of the year that I probably would have opted for playing CCJ over Darling purely just for the future of the football club. And um, he hasn't done anything wrong. It's just a matter of he was injured. And I think he deserves an extended run to see what he can do. I assume he'll probably play that ruck role and forward role. And I think it is a matter of bringing him in because it can stretch the defence for Essendon, who are quite undersized and inexperienced. So if he's going to have a day to prove who he is as a footballer, it's going to be on Saturday night. So excited to see him back. Um, the other, obviously, having George is going to be nothing but positive. He's going to provide, I think, what we may have been lacking a little bit last week, which is a bit of grunt, a bit of want, a bit of attack, all those things that he's just known for. It's going to be good to have him. And I think he's a bit of like a spirit in the midfield as well, Dean. I think he does give everyone a lift in there just with the way he goes about his footy. Naden Core doesn't exactly rock my socks, but I can also understand why he's back in the team because it's an experienced defender in replacement of an experienced defender. But did Riley Hardiman deserve an opportunity? Probably. Did Will Dawson deserve an opportunity? Probably. So there's a few names there that would count themselves certainly up.
Well, if we don't win this week, there's going to be questions asked about a couple of individuals that didn't get named. So, it's certainly everyone's under pressure at the moment, especially at our club, and even Essendon are certainly under pressure. So there are some fascinating matchups. And now George Warlock comes in. Does that mean Harry Sheezel may spend a bit more time forward or behind the ball this week? Because I like the idea of putting Finn O'Sullivan to Zach Merritt because he's pretty much the only damaging player they've got.
Yeah.
And he did do a good job against Zach Butters a couple of weeks ago. I don't mind that. But that would mean that either Sheezel probably has to spend more time out of the midfield. I don't mind him going forward a little bit more, especially if Costante's come out of the team. Not that you want to compare Jacob Costante to Harry Sheezel or anything like that.
Dean, what do you see Harry Sheezel's best role being? So, for the first time in a long time, I walked away from the game thinking, did Harry Sheezel get 40 touches? Yep. Did he have a great day? I don't think as much as what he has had in the past. So, is it a lack of clearness on his role that we're not giving him an opportunity to showcase the best of what he's got? Or what do you think is sort of the block at the moment with him?
I don't mind his role at the moment. I think, someone came in a while ago, sort of mentioned, compared him a little bit to Toby Green. You know, in his early parts of his career, he started in the midfield and was getting 30, 35 touches. He still has an influence on the game. I know he butchered it a couple of times on last weekend, but he still does have a good influence on the game. I think his score involvements were right up there. You know, 40 touches is 40 touches. You put another midfield in there, they probably don't get close to half that most of the time. So he just got to polish up his disposal a little bit, and then we'll be praising his efforts. But I think for the next 3 or 4 years, I don't mind seeing him in midfield, and then he can once we become a better team and we have more trust that Wardlaw can stay healthy. Finn O'Sullivan comes through, LDU, Tom Powell. Then he can spend a bit more time forward of the ball and be really damaging inside that forward 50. That is his best position. But at the moment, while we're a pretty average team, I still like seeing him get the ball in the middle of the park.
Yep. All very good points. Yep.
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? You're still you're a bit on the fence about that?
I like having Foss have some more time in there. And I like seeing McKercher in there. McKercher's the one for me at the moment that I think isn't being used to to the best of his strengths, to the best of his ability. Just the way the game's
Yeah.
going, he's the one that's got the speed, the line breaking sort of ability. We'll see what happens this weekend when you've got Wardlaw potentially feeding the ball out to McKercher on the outside. I thought against Port, some of the most exciting moments was when you saw those guys link up out of the midfield. So you saw a chain that involved Sheasel, Foss, McKercher. It's a bit of a different mix in there for us. So with Wardlaw back, I think the midfield mix will be mixed up, and you'll see some different talent go through there. The one for me at the moment that I've got some question marks over what his role is in the side is probably Dersma. He's still, I understand, he looked like he had a bit more want in the game by laying some tackles and getting involved in the play. But I still think that maybe his role's not settled enough for him to showcase the best of his ability. He'll get frostbite sitting down in the forward line at times, and other times when he's involved, I think he just needs to get more of the ball for us to see, to showcase what his full ability is. So it's a complete different topic of conversation for what you asked me before, Dean. But
Yeah.
the midfield mix, I think, is really important because it's probably clearly the biggest strength we've got outside of the forward setup. And we've just got to get good users through there. We've got to get good users and good passages of play that allow us to score. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard
Hard to get the
to
balance
know.
when it's an imbalanced sort of list too.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's hard to know which North Melbourne you're going to get. It's Jekyll and Hyde. So it's hard to know who's going to be there on Saturday night. Because I don't think it's a talent issue necessarily, because we've got a lot of players that can rotate through there. But they just have days where they're just not effective.
And yeah, I mean, you make a good point about McKercher, but there's only so many midfielders you can throw in there
Yeah.
whose best position is midfield. And there's
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 players I think you might have even named around that area. You can't play them all through there, unfortunately. McKercher had to go in the back line again last week. I can't believe the Griffin leg injury had that much of an effect on about 20 players in that team.
Yeah.
They had to move all over the place. And just going back to Zane Dersma, the frustration was there that he got 7 possessions in the first 10 minutes he was on the ground and ended up the game with 11. So he went missing after that, which coincided with the rest of the team. And he was playing on the wing as well. He wasn't playing predominantly as a full forward where the ball wasn't going down there. So
Yeah.
he's,
I don't want to say it because if when I say it, it's going to get jumped on. But maybe he's just not good enough.
third year is.
He's just not getting his hands on the ball enough. But he just goes missing too often, and he just, I don't know, Dean. He's a real mystery for me at the moment. You probably have to give him a block in the seniors, and you've got to give him an opportunity. But when do you start putting more question marks? That's the question for me.
I think he's good enough, but the fit might not be right for him either at North Melbourne. He might get better opportunities at another club because we've just got too many of those players like Cameron Zurhaar, Paul Curtis. There's probably a few others I'm missing there that are mid-sized forwards around the mark. We have to get rid of Eddie Ford, who I still think was an AFL quality footballer because he couldn't get an opportunity last year. And he had a few injuries. Thanks to that brilliant medical team, they couldn't get him right. And Curtis Taylor even was good enough a couple of years ago. Probably he played a number of good games, but was squeezed out because we just keep drafting the same sort of players. So it might not be the right fit for him. He'll find an opportunity if it doesn't happen for him at North.
Yep.
He might go to play with his brother at Essendon, another struggling club next year as well, rebuilding. That he might thrive there. So who knows?
There are certain players that are like cherry on the cake players, where I think they're not the ones that are to lift you off the canvas. They're the ones to add polish. I think Jaden Stevenson was that type of player. And maybe that's what Dersma is as well. At a great club, he's going to look really good. But at a club where you've got to do more of the grunt work, it's possible that he's just not, cutting the mustard in that sense.
Yeah, but look, and what we talked about, it might just not be the right fit for him,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Now, defensively, this is where it looked pretty ordinary last week. Nate Caddy, now he loses a real threat.
Yeah, he does,
I
doesn't
was
he?
I'm about to ask you, who do you trust to take to him? But I don't really trust much. I'm thinking probably Aiden Core, but that's with very little confidence. If that ball's going in with a little bit of speed, it doesn't really matter who we got back there. He's going to get plenty of scoring opportunities, Siobhan.
Does Luke McDonald have the athleticism? Now, I understand last week he had some moments where you just go, oh Jesus, like they're not great moments, but you can't ever question his effort. And it's possible he has the. I think what's great about Caddy is that he's a tall guy, but he's very agile and very good at ground level. Whether or not McDonald has the kind of closing speed to go with him, that's a real possibility. Um, when you look at the Bombers team, they don't have a lot, do they? There's not a
A
lot
lot of young
there.
kids, yeah,
I
which is
said
some.
this last week, so I've got to be very careful. But there's not a lot where you go, oh, gee, they're going to rip the game apart. So Caddy's probably the one. I mean, Peter Wright, potentially core plays on right, but there's a big height mismatch there. So,
Well, I think Will Dawson would have been a good matchup for Peter Wright, but yeah,
oh,
we can't. We won't go down that rabbit hole again. We've sort of been past that, so um, yeah. Look, it's a few little headaches as far as getting the right matchup. I don't know if Toby Pink goes there, Aiden Core goes to Wright. Look, Wright. I think Wright's best football is well behind him now.
yeah, you probably say Caddy was the more dangerous of the two.
Yeah, oh look, I think Caddy's the potential to kick 6 or 7, depending on how the ball goes down there, especially if they had a bit of speed. But they do have a very young team. It's probably something they should have done about 5 or 6 years ago, Essendon. But they just kept going down the well with Dodoro, thinking that they were round the corner from a premiership when they clearly weren't. Another dangerous matchup in their forward half, and this kid kicked, I think, 1 goal 4 last week, and that's Isaac Kako.
Yeah.
I don't know who the matchup is there as well, because we don't exactly have a lot of speed in that back line either.
It's a real issue, isn't it? Because I mean, this is Essendon we're talking about, and Isaac Hako's not Aussie Pickett yet, is he? So, um, yeah, we really struggle with the dangerous small, don't we? And I'd hate to. I don't think Caleb Daniels got the defensive ability to lock down on someone like that. Looking potentially at Paul Myers, but again, he's probably more the conductor than the lockdown defender. So it leaves a real hole, doesn't it? It leaves a real question mark on who's the one that goes to him. So, oof, yeah. We'd hate the game to Isaac Hacker. All I'll say with that, it'd be disappointing if that's the way that we went down that.
He's a player with talent. He's got a little bit of speed, but he shouldn't be, a defining player that wins Essendon the game either. But I've seen worse players win games against us over the 40 years that I've been supporting the club. So, well, yeah, there's a few little headaches there, but they shouldn't cause too much headaches for a decent team.
No, I mean, we've got some pretty clear advantages too, Dean. Like, no disrespect to Blackiston, but it should be Trish and Sherry's day, absolutely. So there's some real, on the flip side of that, I think we have a lot of strong advantages as well. But, each team has their weapons, but the Bombers, there's a reason why they've lost 15 in a row.
Wow, yeah. I think West Coast lost 14 in a row when they played us. Good opportunity for the Bombers, those good things. But good opportunity for North to break that winning streak. What's it been, 10 years since we've beaten
10
them?
years. 10 years.
Yeah,
which is quite phenomenal when you consider 2016, I think, potentially was the last time. And that was the debacle with the Bombers with the drug saga. So, yes, it's been
and that wasn't a great win either.
either.
That was a shit win too. They didn't have any
never
players.
forget that they probably walked away thinking they'd won the game more than what we did after the performance we put in. I think we got quite far ahead and then stopped, which is a typical North at the moment, unfortunately.
Oh, they're pretty much a standard, isn't it? So, well, that was where we started off really well last years of those
Yep.
of those individual players, unfortunately. So that left the club at the end of the year. So I've got some big games against the Bombers that are some historic wins. Now, we go back to 1998, the qualifying final. It was the Marshmallow game, Siobhan. One of the biggest clubs in the club's modern history. We finished first. They finished eighth.
Yep.
And we won by 44 points.
Oh,
In the end, Wayne Carey was at his peak, completely controlled the game, set the tone for the grand final year, and sent a clear message that the Roos were the team to beat. But unfortunately, we didn't get there. Obviously, the 2014
yep.
elimination final, the comeback for the early ages. Frank the Tank. Yeah,
What a
two
game.
clutch goals.
Sam Wright's mark. That's the real defining point in the game.
Yeah, and shout out to my favourite player of all time, Ariel Steinberg, for playing that game. My favourite Essendon player of all time. Thank God he played. So
that was the real coming of age for Benny Brown, wasn't it? That was the real moment where, he kind of set himself up for the future he had at the football club.
No, that's right. So there are a couple of games that I've gone back to. So yeah, and we've had some tough losses since then, Siobhan. So yeah, very grim. Oh, well, we haven't had many good wins in the last 10 years. Let's be honest here. So
No.
yeah, I had to go
But
back.
it hurts a little bit more losing to the Bombers, and you mentioned on the last podcast, but I'll never forget that Jake Stringer wave in the goal square. That's when I thought, not only do they not, they win every time we play them, but they don't respect us, and that was the tipping point for me in terms of my dislike for not only Jake Stringer but more so Essendon as well. So let's hope we can finally get one up on them and just cause Brad Scott and the Bombers a bit more pain.
Oh yeah, give them some sort of pain anyway. So and give us a little bit of joy. We've been lacking it for a long time. We've gone through a bit of a dry spell playing against the Bombers, and they've had some big wins against us as well. So
They have, haven't they?
Yeah, they've absolutely pounded us. In some games as well by 10 plus goals.
It was heartbreaking because I think we deserved to win that game too, Dean. It was just Finbar, Maley, and the time clock. So
that's right. Yeah, that was hard, but. Good news for Finbar Maley. Got picked this week for the Crows, so good luck to him. Hope he goes well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll see how he goes. Now, potential match winner for North this week, Siobhan. Who you got?
So I mentioned it before. I think Sherry's got a clear advantage in the ruck. So I think he can probably have a very big day. But I'll say for a potential match winner being Luke McDonald, because I do think he'll probably play on Caddy. And like you mentioned, Caddy could potentially swing the game the way of Essendon. So I think with Griffin Logue out, core in but underdone, hasn't played a game this year. Al Mack's probably just starting to hit his stride in terms of match fitness. So I expect a big game from him because for me, he's probably the leader of that back line at the moment. So he's got a big job to do to ensure that he doesn't get off the chain.
Oh, fair enough. No, it's not a bad one in the end.
What about you? And I should have said CJ, my man, coming in.
You could do that as a breakout player who could surprise a few. So, yeah, maybe do that one. I feel like I jinxed this individual, whoever I picked last week. I picked Simpkin. He was almost borderline getting dropped this week after I picked him. So I'll go Harry Sheasel this week. A bit of a safe bet, but after a bit of, I think Matthew Lloyd came out and sort of said he's getting, he's not damaging in that midfield as much as he would be in the forward half. I'll say you get 43 touches, kick 3 goals or something like that, just to put it back on him. So I'll go Sheasel. Now, breakout player who could surprise. You might have just mentioned him, Siobhan.
Yeah, I'll have to go with him. Probably CCJ. I actually think the reason he's in the side, like you mentioned before, is we can probably, no offense to Ben Mackay, but most of the time it looks like he's asleep. Like he's been...
He does not care, does he?
No, and I think we probably won that trade. That's probably one of the few times you can stick your hand up and say North got a good deal. Now, I probably jinx myself, and you'll probably be Essendon's match winner. You watch, but I think with the backline that they've got there, obviously Reed and Roberts and those guys are young and developing, but I think we can stretch them, and CCJ might surprise a few and have a good day out.
I'll go Aiden Core since I've talked him down, so I'll go him. Because we've questioned why isn't Will Dawson getting picked. He could be a perfect matchup for 2 metre Peter, so I'll go Aiden Core. He'll bounce back. But no, my luck, they'll probably put him full forward again like they did in round 24 last year.
If I see that, I'm telling you, I'll be calling the membership department. That'll be me done.
Yeah, I think half the stadium will just walk out of the ground if they see that. So before the bounce has even started. So, yeah, maybe they're going to put him on as a tagger against Ben Mackay, damaging Ben Mackay. So you never know, Siobhan. All right, well, we might as well get to the end here, Siobhan. Final prediction: can the Roos get it done on Saturday night?
Look, I know I started this podcast by saying they've kind of lost the trust of myself just with the performance on the weekend. But I think there is a pattern with our football club as well, Dean, in that when we have a disappointing loss, when there is an opportunity to bounce back from that against a side that on paper we should be beating, they usually somewhat produce a better performance. So I'll say under the lid at Marble on Saturday night, we should be winning the game, and we will by 4 or 5 goals. I think it'll actually be a struggle to start with, but I think we'll break the game open and we'll see a good win.
Sounds good, Siobhan. I've gone for a big win this week. I'm going to go 75 points, Siobhan. I'm very confident. Actually, I thought we were talking about AFLW. Sorry, Siobhan. I got them mixed up. No. No, I'll go 75 points. We're going to have a field day. Brad Scott is going to be sacked at 3/4 time, Siobhan. Yeah, I remember hearing a story that there was a Portsmouth manager in the English Championship, and they were losing 3-0 at half time, and the chairman sent a message to someone to go sack him at half time.
Oh
So
my God.
go sack the manager at half time. And the message didn't get through, and he came back out in the locker room, and they sacked him after the game. So that might be the case here this week. I think it's Andrew Welsh is the president for Essendon now, so he might sack Brad Scott at 3/4 time.
I did have to have a laugh at his comments in the press conference today about we all die eventually, don't we? And that sort of rhetoric was a little bit grim. So I thought, yeah, he probably knows what's coming for him. But I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that either with our footy club. So I like your prediction, Dean. 75 points sounds sweet and certainly well deserved considering we've copped a lot from the Bombers over the journey.
Yeah, I know. It'd be nice to get one back. And we deserve that. I remember in the 90s, we hadn't beaten Hawthorn for about 12, 13 years. And then we ended up beating it by over 100 points in one game on a Friday night. Carey and everyone else went ballistic. It might have been a premiership year, 96 or 94. Yep. I can't remember exactly. So, yeah. So hopefully that may happen on Saturday night. But looking forward to it. Well, kind of. I might not look forward to it after quarter time, but we'll see what happens. But Siobhan, a big thank you for jumping on and sharing your insights. Always great to have your perspective, break things down the way you do.
Thank you, Dean. It's always a pleasure to be on. And look, I'm really, really hoping you see me back next week, because I tell you, I might struggle to show my face again if we have a poor result on Saturday night. But I expect them to bounce back, and hopefully it can be a good propeller for us going into Good Friday, which is going to be a really big game for the footy club as well. So maybe we can all sit back and just look at the West Coast game as an aberration if we can put together a good game on Saturday and use that as a bit of a springboard. So fingers crossed, and as always, go Roos.
No, definitely. And thanks to Jack Crow for coming in the chat. Appreciate your thoughts on Kane Turner, Jack Marnie, Jack Standy there. But if you need to chat, Jack, about anything in life that's not going well, if you're a big fan of those boys, my DMs are always open. But that's it for me. Thanks to everyone for listening to #Kangaroos. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe, share it around, and get involved in the conversation. We'll be back on next week to break down how the Roos went against Essendon. How we're going to beat them. Of course, we're going to beat them. And everything else happening around the club. Until then, bye for now, and go Roos.